Welcome back. Well, that's that post-lunch sort of silence, and what a lunch it was. To start our next session off, our title is Collaborative Creativity. And we have for our panel people for whom creativity is both sort of the air they breathe and, in an important way, their profession. And so I hope you will join me in welcoming our next panel. So first up, Michael Chow.
Howdy.
Welcome. Pleased to see you. Tell us how you got here.
I started off with a degree in design and engineering, so always a mix of the two. Spent 10 years at Apple Computer, 6 years independent, and then the last 7 years at Nike, sort of doing digital technology for them.
And where does collaboration come into your thinking? Has that sort of always been a theme, or is this a newer avocation?
Well, I think the interesting thing about new technologies is that they make it possible for consumers to connect with each other and with companies in a much easier way. And we're seeing more and more of that. And that's been a great opportunity to work in this space.
Got it. And right now you are stewarding something called Nike Plus. Is that right? Any Nike Plus users among us?
Excellent.
Anybody using Nike Plus right now? We'll do
Extra
a shoe
bonus
inspection
points.
on the way out.
Yeah.
And I understand you have a short presentation
I do.
you'd like to give us a sense of what you're up to.
Excellent.
So take it away.
Thank you. So what I'd like to do is share with you a little bit of the work that we are doing around Nike Plus, because for us it really represents a new way of connecting with consumers, and it's been a lot of fun to work on. And for those of you who don't know Nike Plus, it starts with some clever technology that's allowed us to make products that connect to an indispensable service for runners that's really changed the way runners connect with each other and the way they connect with us. What the community that's grown up around this service has made it possible for us to bring nearly 1 million people together in the largest single-day running event in the history of history, and ignite, or should I say reignite, a battle of the sexes across the European continent. Let me show you what I mean. The volume.
Buddy, where's my shoe?
Nice little music for after lunch. So how did we get here? About 10 years ago, Nike started looking into how digital technology would transform sport and the way we connect with our consumers. And if you had asked us back then if we'd be talking on a creative collaboration panel about the sport of running, you probably would have gotten a lot of raised eyebrows. And that's because, for the last 3 decades, running marketing can be summed up in this image, which is the lonely runner on the lonesome road, just me and my shoes and an endless ribbon of asphalt that stretches into infinity. And that's really what running marketing has been all about. But the reality of running is actually quite a bit different. If you look at what's actually driving the growth in the running boom, it's really more images like this. which really says to us that runners, just like all of us, want to be part of a shared experience, want to be connected to something bigger. And these are events that bring new runners into the sport, that really energize and elevate existing runners, and really serve as milestones for both new and existing runners. So what we tried to do with the technology in Nike Plus is it really recaptures some of the emotion of this event. So measure what a runner does, motivate them, and connect them to their friends and other runners like them. And so that's how we got to Nike Plus iPod. And again, for those of you who don't know much about Nike Plus iPod, I'll give you a brief primer. It starts with a little sensor that goes into your shoe, and that sensor tells you how far and how fast you're running and how many calories you've burned, and sends that information to your iPod. And you can see that on the screen of the iPod, but you can also hear it over your music. So it provides you some information that turns into motivation for the runner. And when you get back from your run, it connects you to a website which we created called NikePlus.com. And the best way to think of that is a social network for runners, where the currency, or the user-created content, if you will, are your miles. So what you're able to do is really easily not only track all your runs, but share, compare, and compete with friends. And this area of competition is especially interesting, of course, to Nike. And it's a great example of sort of some of the creative collaboration we've done with our users. We built into Nike Plus the ability to challenge your friends. And once we did that, we found that let's just say that competitive spirit is alive within us all. So not only can you invite your friends to a challenge, but you can create a challenge for the entire Nike Plus community. And what we immediately saw when we put up this capability is there are lots of reasons to run. So in fact, this idea of men versus women has actually been one of the perennial favorite challenges in the Nike Plus community. It's really what drove this campaign that you just saw. But not only do we have men versus women, but you can see we have short people versus tall people, dog people versus cat people. We have Mac users versus PC users. Your favorite football team, your state, or my favorite, Texans versus the rest of the world, which is also a perennial challenge. So, but actually my favorite challenge is this one, and this really showed us the power of this creative collaboration with our users. A user basically wanted us to make t-shirts that memorialized their accomplishments in Nike Plus. So this is the 100-mile version, but he created a 500-mile version as well. He went to our site and cut and pasted pictures of our shirts and designed this very handsome Nike Plus 100-mile club t-shirt. And he said, let's tell Nike we want them to make this t-shirt that we can buy only if we've run that many miles in the Nike Plus system. So he actually created a 500-mile version of this and got 6,000 people to pledge to run 500 miles over the course of the year to tell Nike to make a shirt for them so that they could be memorialized. So this is a very different way of engaging with our consumer than we're used to, but a really great example of what can happen when you create these sorts of tools. Another great example is this feature which we built called the Nike Plus Mini, which you can think of as your running alter ego. You create this little animated character, you dress it, of course, in Nike footwear and apparel, and it lives either on your screensaver or on your Facebook page to cheer you on when you've gone for a great run, or taunt you a little bit if you haven't run for a while. And again, weeks after we put this up, the community of Nike Plus found very interesting ways to use it in the Nike Plus Mini Strip Challenge, where people gathered together, and if they had the lowest time, or the longest time to complete a run, they had to remove an article of clothing from their Mini. And it's amazing how much motivation is built into not wanting your friends on Facebook to see that your Mini has no clothes or no hair. So we create tools, and it's our responsibility to create tools that allow our consumers to do amazing and interesting things with them, but also to give them a seed, to plant the seed or provide a catalyst that really brings together the reason why they run. So we saw when we launched Nike Plus that runners were connecting with other runners around the world. So we thought, what can we do to really elevate that idea? So on August 31st of last year, we decided to stage the single largest single-day running event in history, August 31st, by staging 26 running races across 26 cities around the world on the same day. And each of these events had tens of thousands of people who took over the city to run a 10K together, and they were all connected digitally. Now, if you were in one of those cities on race day, it would have looked a little bit like this. So whether you're in Rome or Chicago or Buenos Aires, around the world, you took over your city in a sea of red shirts running your 10K, and we connected all of these people digitally, so within hours of you completing your race, you could see how your city did versus other cities, see your time against other people's times. And the idea was to bring together the world in a running event that really connected runners from every place on the planet. But what was interesting about this is we didn't just invite people to our own races. We also created kits for them to create their own human race events wherever they were, whether it be at their local Starbucks or at their gym or at their running retailer. And again, my favorite example of this is this family that did not want to be left out of race day and actually did a 10K running race on board the cruise ship Freedom of the Seas as it was sailing around the Caribbean, and then sent us this picture as an example of their participation. So anyone, whether they were in our big races or running on their own, was able to see their time, see how they stacked up against the rest of the world, and really, again, feel really connected to everyone else who ran on this day. Now you'll see we have a little mechanism that helped drive this community, and it's the mechanism of color. We put everyone in the same color shirt, so no matter where you were, you could see the sea of red in front of you and behind you, and really feel connected to those people you're running with. And as you streamed in across the finish line or across the start line, we were showing videos of the other race cities that had completed, so you could really see that everyone was running on this day in red shirts. But just as color can bring people together, we can also use it to, let's see, amplify some natural rivalries. So in an event we did in London called Run London, we had heard that there was this tension between north of London and south of London, so we decided to put all North Londoners in green shirts and South Londoners in orange shirts and line them up at the starting line together. So again, as you ran this race, you saw your nemesis in the different colored shirt, and it really amplified this spirit of competition between these two natural rivalries, which brings us back to our Battle of the Sexes. So what do we learn from creating this interesting experiment by creating tools and creating and really amplifying reasons to run? Well, much has been said about the fact that in this new Web 2.0 world, the consumer is in control. But I think what we would say is the consumer has always been in control. We haven't always recognized that, but these new tools make it easier and faster for them to remind us. And so what we need to do is look for opportunities to engage them and obviously listen to them, amplify their voice, and really, when it comes right down to it, learn more about them so we can serve them better. So while the tools and tactics are maybe a little bit different, I think the goal is the same. So just do it.
Michael, thank you for a fabulous presentation. How difficult, if at all, was it to pitch this concept internally at Nike as something to take a risk on? I imagine once you announce Human Race Day, you hope that people show up, right?
What's amazing about Nike is that it is a big idea culture, and I remember the day we talked about it for a long time. Actually, the idea has been was kicked around at Nike for over 10 years, and when we finally had the technology to do it, we said, okay, let's do it, and then people, after we announced it publicly, we said, well, how the hell are we going to do it? And so a sea of people amassed to really to deliver that. I mean, if you imagine staging 26 race day events on the same day across the world, it's a major logistical challenge.
Yes.
But it's amazing to see the company rise to the occasion.
Well, it's amazing. I know different companies have what they call their core mission. I think 3M is to solve unsolved problems innovatively, and Fannie Mae is to democratize American homeownership, and Nike's is to experience the thrill of winning and crushing the competition.
There you go.
Which is reflected in some of your advertising, too. How much do you think this is central to Nike's future? Is Nike a shoe company for which this is an ancillary product, or is this somehow, is Nike becoming a social networking company?
Well, I think the answer to that really lies, how central is it, lies in the fact that, you know, the people we serve, the youth generation, are familiar with this. This is the place where they live. This is the space where they are in. Yeah. And if we want to connect with them, we need to be in this space. Yeah. So I think that really defines how central it is.
I guess it gives new meaning to the old term sneakernet. And I can think of features like if you click your heels 3 times or something, it resets the iPod, or you can touch feet with people that you want to friend and trip those you don't, something like that. And is this, how tight is the exclusivity on the iPod dimension and on the Nike dimension? Can you imagine a Nike versus Adidas challenge and line them up like that?
Well, the partnership with Apple we have is tremendous, and they're great to work with, and I think we share a lot of the same values and vision.
But you'd be delighted to port it to Android, right?
Well, we're really happy with our partnership with Apple.
Fair enough, fair enough. And I suppose, too, there might be expansion into other zones like medical monitoring or something, right? Or you think you're cultivating an expertise in synthesizing the sensor with the human network?
What I can say is that what's been really interesting about Nike Plus is that unlike a lot of places in Nike which start at the top of the pyramid and look for innovation to trickle down, Nike Plus really started at the base. The idea of motivating people to be more active to run is a really big idea. And if you look at people in the Nike Plus community, we've got everything from 67-year-old people who've walked all those miles to really, really fast Olympic athletes. So.
And have you seen companies imitating this approach? I mean, I guess it's tougher for McDonald's to have a hamburger eating challenge between men and women or something. But do you see it being imitated by others?
Well, I think what we see, I think, in a lot of industries is the idea of connecting products to services. And so I think there are a lot of folks in that space. And I think as anyone who's tried to do that knows, it's really challenging to do well.
And last question, you talked about empowering the users and even being able to give them some control over the way that not just the shoes work or the software experience, but they have their avatar and they can dress the avatar and things like that. How much is there worry about brand dilution or tarnishment or other things? Are there occasions where you might say to those kids, it's nice that you're doing that, but we'd rather you stop and get the official Nike version of whatever it is they designed?
Well, I think that, as I said earlier, that the consumer is in control, and so they're going to decide how they relate to our brand and how they want to use it. So I think we've just been thrilled to see how they've taken it forward.
Got it. Thanks so much. So on to David Jones. David, you're the CEO of Havas Worldwide. Tell us what Havas does.
Basically a big global advertising agency network. We've got about 250 agencies around the world and about 12,000 people.
So you're an ad man, as they say.
I am.
And how did you get from where you were to there? Did you know you wanted to be an ad man when you were little?
I always say I think people who do well in our industry have 3 traits. They have highly curious minds, short attention spans, and they did all the work for their exams the night before. And that kind of
Namely, an entire generation of youths today are all going to become ad people.
Exactly, which is, well, they're not going to become bankers anymore, so we've got a good recruitment source there.
And what you want to talk about today, though, is a bit separate from that, or grows out of that. Tell us a little bit about your new project.
I think that what our industry is very good at is changing people's behavior. And that actually a kind of passion of mine is if we want our industry to be more respected, and there's a big event called Advertising Week in the US that sort of celebrates the fact that we created Ronald McDonald or, the Pillsbury Dome, and my view is that's not how you will get respect for our industry. What we need to do is use our ability to change people's behavior for causes that really matter.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about one of those today.
And we've seen a lot of those causes over the course of the past 2 days,
Exactly.
looking to see about people's behavior and how to improve it. Why don't we turn it over to you for your presentation?
Thank you. Great, thank you very much. So if we could pull the slides up. So Michael's presentation was a fantastic example of something that's kind of complete and finished and done. And mine is all about something we're going to do, and all of you in this room can help make it way better. And what it basically is, it's about collaborative creativity to empower the next generation of world leaders. But kind of first, a little story. This is a wallet. I was in the station in Boston about 3 or 4 months ago, and I dropped my wallet. And I was kind of coming from the gym. I was hot. I put my jacket on the back of those sad wheelie bags we have, and I got into the train, and I realized I'd lost my wallet. And so I spent the next kind of 2 or 3 hours running around in a state of panic, because when you live in the US and you use your green card, they will give you one back in a month, so you can't travel for a month, and then they will put you into secondary every time you come back into the country for a year, which isn't actually that nice an experience. So after I lost my wallet, I was chatting to a bunch of people on the phone throughout the day, and there were kind of 2 camps. There were those people who said, look, people are fundamentally dishonest. You will never, ever see your wallet again. Forget it. And there are other people who said, look, actually, people are really good and decent, and you'll get your wallet back. So my question for you, this is the first. There's going to be 2 moments for creative collaboration in this presentation. This is the first one. It's a very high-tech poll. Can you stick your hand up if you believe I got my wallet back? Okay, and those of you who don't think I got my wallet back?
Does anybody actually have this wallet?
Because that's cheating.
Well, it was about 66.2% of you thought that I got my wallet back, which allows me to randomly use one of my favorite quotes from Vic Reeves, which says 66.2% of all statistics are made up. But actually, I did get my wallet back, and I think, as you do, I fundamentally believe people are good, and I think one of the great things we've seen over the last 2 days is how much good stuff is happening in the world. And I think, consumers today, and particularly young consumers, believe that companies should give back as much as they take. And I think we've seen from the banks what happens if you don't. We did a major global study at the start of last year, and here's one of the findings from it. 86% of people said that it's important that companies stand for something other than profitability. And this was in January. I think if you did it now, it would probably go up to 96%. And I think the thing that's wonderful about the digital revolution we're living in is that, as most revolutions, it's given people power. And the digital consumer will punish people who actually do not live up to the way they expect us to behave today. And I think the Time magazine front cover was a bit of a gimmicky stunt, but it was a fundamental point in there. You, the individual, controls the information age. And another finding from our study was 80% of people basically saying that as a consumer, I have a responsibility to basically censure unethical companies. And I think against that background, what we're seeing is that good business and social responsibility needs to be at the heart not only of business strategy, but I believe that those examples of where you want to really creatively collaborate and engage people, you need to have social responsibility at the heart and the core of that. And here is my patented Venn diagram, which you feel free to rip off. But if you have one circle which is all about what's a kind of genuine incredible role for the brand, and another circle which is what are real issues that consumers care about. I think nailing great creative collaboration with consumers is about hitting the intersection in the middle. There are some companies out there who are talking about what's important to them, but consumers don't care about it, and there are other companies out there who are jumping on the issues that consumers care about, and that's why we're seeing so much greenwashing. And actually, just listening to Michael's presentation, the human race sits very nicely at the center of that. So one of our things we say to our clients is, your brand and your company need to stand for something. And so I guess we believe that if we're going to actually practice what we preach, that we should do the same thing. So Kate Robertson, who is the chairman of our UK business, who's in the audience somewhere around here, and I have created a thing and founded a thing called One Young World. And basically, the idea is really simple. It's a Davos for 25-year-olds and younger. that if the world's leaders can't actually make the right decisions and get us to the right place, then given our obsession with youth and given how clever some young people are today, we can actually use them to exert pressure on the world's leaders to do the right things. So the inaugural One Young World Summit is going to be in February in London. Here are some of the counselors, but the whole thing has basically been built around collaboration. There'll be 1,500 people from around the world who will attend. It's the first ever session that's actually going to bring together people in exact proportion to the global population. So it's not going to be 1,500, rich kids from America and the UK. It will be absolutely proportionally representative. And every level of it is about collaboration. So the 5 or 6 kind of sessions that are going to be debated, we're out in the field through YouGov doing major global polling, and I'll share quickly some of the results of that. But we're basically going to poll up to 1 million people, and then we will kind of shut the polling down if we get up to 1 million. The way you actually get to attend is collaborative creation. So we're asking people to basically upload a video, working with YouTube and with Facebook, put together a video of why you should actually attend One Young World, and then we'll have a mechanism where people can actually vote on that and decide who some of the attendees are. The way sponsors are involved is very collaborative. Reckitt Benckiser is going to be one of the key sponsors. They're bringing with them 50 people from around the world from Save the Children and collaborating with the NGOs. And even the way the counselors have been selected, there'll be a counselor who kind of chairs each plenary session is collaborative. So we work with Kofi Annan on his Global Alliance for Climate Justice. Kofi's going to chair the session on climate. We're going to put the draft resolution on climate out in December or in November, just prior to Copenhagen, which is, for those of you who don't know, the new Kyoto. And then we'll use One Young World to comment, the young people of the world will comment on how they believe the world's leaders actually did in Copenhagen. So what I thought I'd quickly do is share with you 3 videos so that you don't think it's just some random bloke from an ad agency trying to do something. We've got 3 quite interesting counselors behind us already. If you could play the videos, please.
You are the cream of the corporate world. We appeal to you. Choose of the up-and-coming people in your world to One Young World, because our world is fragile, it's at risk, and it needs people like yourselves, people who are like you, and you can choose such persons as the next generation of leaders to One Young World. And our world might just be saved.
The zeitgeist that you're going through, the spirit of the age, the trouble is that we're not sure what the spirit of the age is anymore, that the old lines upon which we established ourselves, those of my generation, maybe yours, have proved to be wrong. They've dissolved, but that's the fate of every generation. In the 21st century, we need to anticipate zeitgeist rather than live within them. I love reading polemic that makes me uncomfortable with the way I'm thinking, because frankly, the way I'm thinking just simply isn't right. If it was right, then the world wouldn't be the way it is. And the world will always be the way it is, whatever that may be, for good or ill. But surely there's some way we can get ahead of the game and plot the way we would like it to be, rather than reacting to the events that happen to us in the middle of a zeitgeist. I'll see your chosen nominees at the One Young World, I guess. I'm looking forward to it. You should come up with an interesting mob.
I hope that young people everywhere and the delegates of One Young World, those who will inherit this planet, will join us as partners in the Global Alliance for Climate Justice.
So just very quickly share with you a snapshot of some of the research we've done. This is from 22 countries. It's actually now up to 20,000 people. What's interesting as you look around the world's youth population is how very similar the things that are coming back from the advanced nations, the newly industrialized nations, and the Middle East and North Africa are. The number one issue for everyone, interestingly enough, is world poverty. One of the things on here, though, is climate and in the environment is the number 4 issue from the advanced and the newly industrialized nations, and actually the number 2 issue from Middle East and Africa. And I think one of the key reasons for that is that, in the developed world, climate is something we think is going to be a problem in 20 or 30 years, whereas actually there are people dying as we speak in Africa because of the impact of climate change. So basically my kind of thing for you guys today and where I would love your help, and that's why I say we're at the start of this rather than at the end of it, is I think the best creative collaboration is really open source. I think what you often see in this world is if one person's doing something on climate, they end up actually being a rival of someone else who's doing something on climate, and actually they should all get together, because if we sort the climate problem out, the world will be a better place. So this, think of this as whatever you are doing in the youth space, whatever you would love to do in the youth space, come on board and help. How do you help very specifically? It's this simple, it's delegates. I mean, what we want to do, the quality of what comes out of the session will depend upon the 1,500 people that we have in that room. And I was lucky enough to sit at dinner last night next to Oscar and Jared, who you'll be hearing from next. Two amazing people who are actually now too old to be on One Young World. We'll probably have them in as counselors. But you guys are in this room because you're some of the smartest people in the world. Otherwise, Google wouldn't have invited you. So you must all know 2, 3, 4, 5 brilliant people who should be at One Young World. You probably have the means to sponsor them and send them there. It's not for profit, but there's a £3,000 cost for a delegate, which is nothing if you're in a country like the US, but it's a hell of a lot of money if you're in a developing country. And if you want to be a sponsor, we'd love to hear from you as well. So my email address is david.jones@havas.com. You can find the One Young World website on the web or the Facebook site, but I'd love to encourage all of you to come in and collaborate. So thank you.
David, thank you so much. How did you come up with the idea?
I didn't. I issued the challenge, and Kate Robertson came up with the idea. So I basically said I fundamentally believe that our industry should be doing things to influence behavior for the good, and Kate had this brilliant idea of One Young World, and so we created it.
How are you paying for it?
Basically, it's all going to be funded through sponsorship for the delegates attending. And as you can imagine, in the current climate, most people haven't got a couple of £1 million that they're not sure what to do with. So anybody who does, please see me afterwards.
Another way you can help is what you're saying. And how much does this represent to you a leap of faith? A sense that you've decreed, I guess, is there a date set for the
February
convention?
the 8th to 10th and a venue booked, yeah.
So you've rented the venue and all that, you've stepped out.
Exactly. Well, it's a bit like Michael's thing. I passionately believe in this. We believe in it. We're going to try and make it happen. I think we'll get there. I think the interesting thing is just the reaction from, so far everybody we've spoken to, no one's gone, this is a really crap idea. Why are you doing it? So I think it's just about, ensuring that we keep going. And we've got, a number of delegates signed up already.
Right.
So.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tony Davidson, Executive Creative Director at Wieden and Kennedy. Tell us what you do and how you got there.
Well, Wieden and Kennedy was two hippies, Dan Wieden and David Kennedy, who lived in Portland, Oregon, and they went back to set a little company up because they liked Portland, and a guy called Phil Knight walked into their office and said, I fucking hate advertising. I don't know why I'm here, but somebody said I should come and talk to you two, and Phil Knight obviously was Nike, and the companies grew together, really. Dan wrote Just Do It, and I run the London office, of which there's now 7 offices.
Wow, so if you weren't doing this, it's like the two guys would be making ice cream. It'd be like Ben and
Probably.
Jerry.
They're pretty like that, actually.
Incredible. And tell us a bit about your background.
I sort of fell into advertising. I didn't really want to get into it. I ended up at a course that I misread at Manchester Poly, and ended up doing this thing where you got given a sheet of paper and coming up with ideas. And ever since I've done that, I've loved it. But I've actually had a real sort of disdain for advertising, even though I've been in it for 25 years. And I think it's interesting when you're always sort of questioning things that you're in. I think is a really good trait to have.
It just sounds like what Sir Bob Geldof was saying in the video about that. And speaking of which, I understand you have a presentation you'd like to share as well.
A little bit, yeah.
Please join us.
I have to go really fast through this because Jonathan said you've got 10 minutes. Okay. Right. There we go. Are we there? Right, interestingly, I just grabbed this. I apologise to the photographer who's probably going to sue me. Found it on the net. What's interesting is they're all men's hands, which is a bit worrying. When I came here, there's far too many men at this conference. I think we need more women. They're great collaborators, right? And then I thought I'd go back in history, a bit like Prince Charles did. We're all right? Whoop, wrong way. So creative collaboration is not something new. come on back. It's a bit catchy. He's not something new. This is Mr. Kubla Khan, otherwise known as Emperor. He used to get all the best creative people inside his court, right, and get them to build stuff for him, right? Egos. You were lucky, if you were a member of the public, you might be lucky to be a slave, right? Okay, we're going to move on a bit. I went to the Barbican the other day, so one of my heroes, Le Corbusier, and he was a tremendous collaborator. He was not just an architect, he did graphic design, painting, and he surrounded himself with a group of great collaborators. He wanted to make, in his first houses, he actually chose furniture that other people were making because he couldn't make it himself. And it wasn't until he met people like Peter Behrens and Charlotte Perriand, I think it is, who he started designing his own furniture with them. But it was collaboration, which he called his electronic poem, which was a mixture of architecture, sound, color, light, and it was the thing that was the opening night in the center. And all the people who collaborated on that came from all over the world. And he didn't have a mobile phone and technology at the time that he was doing it. So we just need to get into a bit of perspective. This is a beta test that went out on the internet and affected my life quite a lot. If you should play a little bit of film, maybe? Oh, we jumped. Oh, we're getting there. I clicked twice. So I sort of received that on my computer. In 1996 that was. It was sort of beta, sort of, they were just testing the animation.
You weren't the one who started that.
No. Okay. But I think it was really interesting that, obviously people who were building in the early days built this thing and put it out there. Yes. And they didn't have any branding on, they didn't, people didn't know about it, and it went out, and the public got hold of it and played with it. And then I think they actually offered out different bits that you could manipulate it, and then there's hundreds and thousands of them, and they're like different music and different ways, and it ended up on the Ally McBeal show. And I thought, that's really, really interesting, the way the public is getting hold of this thing and doing these things. So the next brief I was working on a Levi's brief, and I thought, how can we create a little bit of film and not put some branding on it and put it out there? And this is the day before, we couldn't send them out on emails, these, because it would crash everybody's computer, so you had to send a link. So we sent this out. And interestingly, that film was a complete mistake. The puppet was only ever supposed to act like a human and tap like that. And on the shoot, it just didn't look that funny. So I went up to the director and said, can we make it a bit bigger, a bit bigger? And the director, who's French, under a lot of stress, his first time, 24 years old, first time with a big crew, went, you stupid English pigs, do you not understand? We have discussed this. We're just too small. And anyway, I said, oh, just one more time. So we went down the road, and he started like this and started going bigger and bigger and bigger to sort of take the piss out of us. And it ended up as this great piece of film that we put out there. People went, amazing, what's this all about? What's happening? What's happening? And we were interested in actually accelerating. So apologies to Prince Charles, but we stole this bit of film and we stripped this character in and released this from a Swedish internet cafe.
I think.
That's the first time I've admitted to that, so I'm probably getting sued again. This is what came back, and we knew nothing where this came from. I presume it's a production company or somebody, because it was 10 years ago.
That same one you broke the loose again. See if you can lock it down. Are trying to increase the power.
Anyway, you get the idea. It's like, somebody spent a lot of time doing that stuff. And then, we work on Honda. And when we did Honda Cog with all the parts knocking together, I could have cut you an hour of chain reactions shot by different people. This is actually, I think, an 11-year-old boy in his bedroom who shot frame for frame a copy of a Honda film we did. I love the way he put Lego, and he's just transformed the whole thing into a Lego ad.
It could be the creative director of Lego.
And I think the other point is that, the most famous advertising campaign of 2007 is where two clients collaborated, two brands collaborated without the permission of the client. And I think what this is getting to, I mean, everybody's alluding to it, is that, the people are in control and they're interested. They're interested in brands now. They want to know what they're doing. And I think if the business models of companies have to change. I think the business models of governments have to change. Everything has to change. It's been turned on its head, and the opportunities are now. There's a real moment to do some good, because I think people have just been like putting themselves up at the moment on this. Look at me, look at me, look at me. But there's a movement if you can get together. And I think every company has to ask itself this question, really. Are you a company that society wants to exist? I know, David, in our advertising industry, I think we all feel terribly guilty about selling things to other people. And there's a lot of brands that should not exist in this world. Full stop. They should get off. And I think the ones that hopefully are good will rise up. So with that in mind, here's a little collaborative project. I sort of have crazy projects, and I never get them off the ground because I'm a dreamer. I'm trying to do hospitals in India using mobile phone technology and collaboration. But I'll just pick on a little one. This is an architectural project called the Eighth Wonder of the World. Right, so this is my scribble. I think time is the most precious commodity we have at the moment in our history. And if we weren't for the sun, we wouldn't be here. So if we were going to leave something to the generations after us or to the next species, what kind of building would we leave? And I wanted to build a solar power station that was actually a giant sundial that's 100% recyclable and more, and create stuff. So I'm not an architect. I need to collaborate. So I Skyped this guy. This guy's Casper Mork-Ulnes. I liked his work. I Skyped him. I said, would you be interested? He said, yeah, why not? Let's just do something. So he said, you need a lot of sun for this. So that started to dictate where the location was. So you also need quite a bit of money. Well, Dubai's lost most of it, so it's probably going to have to be somewhere near Abu Dhabi. And also, interestingly, because I don't understand these things, but now I do, if you have a sundial, you need to have it at an angle there, because obviously the equatorial sundials are different to vertical sundials. So this is forcing our building to look a bit like this. Now then, if you want to build a wonder of the world, you normally make it really, really big. You're an egotist. We need big, big. We need massive. So we looked at the biggest buildings in the world, most of them monuments to wealth, I would argue, which is not what we need now. The building on the left, I think, is the Burj in Dubai. It's currently 818 meters high, I think, when it's finished. So we thought we'd build something 3 times as big.
You want Richard to see it from
Right,
space.
but we're going to build it. Yeah, I do want to see it from space. But this is, so we're going to build it this way because we need solar panel technology in order to do it and spread it out. So the building started taking shape. When you start the length of that, and this is the sundial face here, you can see. So the main thing is that when it builds, this building has to serve a purpose. It can't just be something that we're just doing because thing. So I want to build within it, we need to build things like the biggest center in the world for like future technologies, where everybody can go, and it should be open source building. We need to build like eco part like they've got down in Cornwall or something to save the right plants and stuff. We need to power cities from, you know, it needs to have a purpose where it is. So we're going to do that, and basically that is what it would look like. And the nice thing is if you're flying past it, because you always need a wonder of the world, if you're flying past it, the pilot can say out of the window, he can go, if you look outside, you'll see that the time is 2:30 in the afternoon, which is also a great selling point. But the one collaborator...
You need a screen so people can check their email, too.
Exactly. The one collaboration I don't have is I don't have the finances to do this. I don't know the engineers to build this. I don't have any of that. But that's what I think being open source is about, and having ideas that are crazy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony, for putting so many additional ideas on the table. It's funny, as I compare your approach to Michael's approach, both have these elements of throwing things out to people and trusting, I don't know if you want to call it the consumer or the citizen or the person out there, although yours are often, it seems, shaped to be somewhat inscrutable and able to be a tale that can be taken up, whereas Michael's appear more, make no mistake, it's about Nike, right? Yeah. That's very clear. I'm curious, if you were in consultation with Michael right now, he just bought about 45 seconds of your time, very precious time, what would you have to say to him?
I think clients, the hard bit for me is I end up on the end of the process, yeah? And I think that people need to collaborate much earlier on. I think there's a lot of internalizing with companies and brands, and people, you know, at the top, there's a lot of protection. And I actually think if I could ask people to do one thing, it would be that brands collaborated more, not just with each other, but also with the ideas people at an earlier process, because product's the most important thing. You know, working like that would be more interesting, and maybe we would get to more interesting points than just doing the communication, I think.
Interesting. Well, thank you. I know we're somewhat low on time, and I want to make sure we have enough time for Chaz. So let's turn straight to Chaz Jenkins. Tell us a little about yourself.
As with certain people this morning, I wanted to be an astronaut when I was young, which is why I work for an orchestra. The London Symphony Orchestra was formed in 1904. It was the first orchestra in the UK to be owned by its members rather than players working for a conductor. The orchestra owned their own company. They called it a musical republic. And it's developed since then to become the most recorded orchestra in the world.
And are you a musician yourself?
No, I have absolutely no musical ability whatsoever.
And when that came up in the interview, what persuaded them?
I think they like the idea of having a non-musician around for a laugh.
I'm the only non-musician you'll see. Fascinating. Now tell us a little bit about LSO Live.
Yeah, around about a decade ago, we established our own record label. For two reasons. One, because we recognized the recording industry had problems, but also we had an opportunity because we saw that there was possibilities presented by the internet. We could never launch our own record label in the past because we're an orchestra, we're an events organization who can move players around the world to concerts, but players have legs. Boxes of CDs don't have legs. But the internet held a lot of possibilities for us to both publish our own content, market it if we still did CDs, but also to establish two-way relationships with people, which is something you couldn't do when you worked solely through another record company, a publisher, or a broadcaster.
And I guess this leads straight to the idea of the YouTube Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah, well, we established our own education program about 25 years ago, and education is very much core to what we do. All musicians, all artists really are educators to some degree. To be a great artist, it's not just about producing a great performance or a great work of art. It's how you influence and inspire your successors. And so we have our education department, which doesn't teach people how to play violins or anything. It teaches people how to make music together, whatever their level of musical ability. So we can take people who have had no musical education whatsoever, put them in front of a gamelan, which is a Balinese or Javanese instrument, and they can be making music together very, very quickly. So education is core, and that's part of the YouTube Symphony Orchestra. That really grew out of that. I mean, I had a call about 18 months ago from a guy called Tim at Google. He had this idea to use classical music as a way of demonstrating the collaborative uses of YouTube rather than just as a place where you upload what are normally frivolous videos. So because there is this potential on YouTube to collaborate, to see a video and upload other videos and comment on people's videos. And an orchestra is a great example of collaboration. You have 100 highly trained, highly skilled people. But they all have to do exactly the right thing at exactly the right time in exactly the right way. Otherwise, what you get is just noise. So Tim had this idea to create a community. And we really worked together, taking it from there. A number of other musicians came on board. The conductor, Michael Tilson-Thomas, composer, Oscar-winning composer Tan Dun wrote a piece for the project.
And was this a self-selected community? Anybody could step forward to be a member?
Yeah, absolutely. We produced masterclasses initially, which went on a special section of the YouTube site. And then there was a big push to try and get people around the world to actually download Tan Dun's piece and other suggested audition repertoire, video themselves performing that repertoire, and upload it so that other people could see what they were doing and they could comment on each other's videos. We wanted people to encourage themselves to make music. It's really, our education work is more about encouragement than education, which is a sort of scary word.
Yes. Now, sometimes when you have that much contribution coming in, it can kind of spread out. There's just more and more stuff to have to sort through. How did you start to winnow it towards a focus point rather than spreading out?
The main aim was just to create a community, but we had this fantastic catalyst to encourage people to take part, which was from all the videos uploaded, we would, after a period of a couple of months, sift through them all, select the most talented videos, and then they would be put back, the top few hundred would be put back on the community for everybody who took part to vote on, to select an orchestra of 100 people who Google flew to New York for several days, expert tuition, and then they formed an orchestra to give a concert at Carnegie Hall. And which is quite remarkable. There's an old joke in classical music. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. The example here is how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Upload, upload, upload. And it's probably worth having a look at a clip of this, which summarizes the project.
This is Tan Dun. I'm very excited to bring the YouTube Symphony Orchestra to you.
Join us in creating the world's first collaborative online orchestra.
Record yourself playing, then submit that video to YouTube.
The best and bravest of you will be invited to Carnegie Hall.
Send us your submission so we can know who you are, so we can find you and consider you to join us in New York.
Hi, my name is Monica.
I'm Stéphane Tétrault and I play the cello.
Hi, my name is Irene Sualdin. I'm from Italy.
Adam Mata, human beatboxer.
Hello, I'm Marjolein Damen.
This is what I play. I'm Pierre Charles. I'm French.
My name is Soo-Young Lee. I come from Korea.
My name is Michal. I can sort of shed everything and just put my playing out there and see how it holds up.
If I get through, it'll be absolutely fantastic opportunity. I'm a little bit nervous about finding out.
The luckiest day of my life is sometime in the future.
That would be like a really cool feather in the cap.
Hello?
Hi, it's Jim.
Brilliant.
I got in.
You got in? Yeah. I'm going to New York. Can I just go tell some mates?
Dr. Calvin Lee, and I will be playing violin in the YouTube Symphony Orchestra. When I'm not playing the violin, I also work as a surgeon.
I'm 15 years old and I've been playing the cello since the age of 7.
I think it's energized even the whole country because a person from Bermuda was actually selected.
Hello, I'm Tiago Santos from Portugal and I play the violin.
I come from a little country
called Austria.
I am Ana Catalina Ramirez.
I'm from Australia.
My name is Patrick Chapman, and I am from Columbia, South Carolina.
I can't wait to meet all of you at Carnegie Hall.
It's an amazing opportunity that I could never have dreamed of.
I can't really imagine a world without music, because it's everywhere. You can say so much with music that you can't say in other ways.
Wow. So how many applications did you get over what interval?
We had around about 3,500 really serious applications, people with talent.
How many applications did you get?
3,500 was the number of applications. In total, 20 million people have visited the actual channel and actually watched videos, taken part in the actual channel.
And then you all had to choose from among them?
There were certain rules and guidelines. I think it was around about just under 3,000, which we had to wade through.
Right.
So certain sections of the orchestra had a lot to listen to, and there was other musicians who actually collaborated. We were really helped by the famous snow. The several meters of snow which hit London this year, because it meant we had to cancel.
That sent people inside to play? Or that? And I know it's probably impossible to answer, but do you have any sense as to what the orchestra composition might have looked like had you put it out to some standard popularity contest style, Britain Sings or American Idol kind of thing, versus selecting it in a curated way?
I don't really know. I mean, part of the idea of the project was that, yes, we would have some influence on selecting the orchestra, but the final selection of the orchestra was up to the community itself. And that's not the same as up to the public via a television vote. It's up to the community who've actually taken part. Because we wanted it to be a community of people encouraging each other and getting excited about their instrument. And there were people taking part who are in countries with access to really good quality music education. But there are other people with real talent who really had very little access to a really good music education.
And am I right, you have a video of some of the result?
Yeah, just quickly, we had 35 different nationalities who were represented in the orchestra at the end of the day. Some people had never been outside their own country, never mind been to New York. And all different walks of life, as you saw. I mean, some people were music students, but then there were students of maths and physics. And there was taxi drivers, housewives, a surgeon, even a professional poker player who was a really fine musician. Wow. And so I think we'll just look at the sort of finale to the concert.
So you have these participants playing Carnegie Hall. I imagine there's people in the hall, right? There's an audience and everything. Yep. Jubilant. What next? They all go home, and then what?
The idea of the concert was very much just a sort of a catalyst to the project. We wanted to, the whole idea was to create a community, show what was possible with YouTube.
Yes.
And hopefully the community of people using it will become self-sustaining.
Yes.
And will tell other people that there is this sort of resource now out there. Where you can actually get online and get some encouragement, because learning a musical instrument can be a bit of a boring, lonely experience.
Yes.
The real fun about playing music is performing for people or with people, which is a collaborative exercise in its own right.
And are you planning for the next?
We'd love to do it again, but we hope, as I said, we hope the community sort of has a life on its own, which continues. The remarkable thing, one of the remarkable things was when all the people came together in New York to start rehearsals, even though they'd never met each other before, they all knew each other because they'd all been online on YouTube taking part in the project.
Yeah. Now, we're desperately short on time, so let's try to synthesize down to really kind of one question, which is never easy to do. But here's a best shot at it, which is throughout the conference over these 2 days, we've heard about so many of the pressing issues and problems that are larger than any of us and that really do loom large in a certain way. And also certain revolutions that are underway, that are affecting the way we do business, the way we interact with each other, the way we conceive of the future. And a lot of that seems to hinge on the younger generation, a sense that this is a generation not much like the generations that are currently holding the reins of power. And we heard it when we took a poll to see there's so many kids playing World of Warcraft, but not as many parents. Or as you're thinking about what kind of advertising or activities or aspirations will reach that younger generation, presumably they all still want to be astronauts at some age, but they're looking for something different or they're triggered by different things. I'm just curious if any of you has some wisdom or some words about engaging with this new generation that will soon be inheriting both the problems and the opportunities we've created.
Who wants to go
That's
first?
all order.
I mean, I think what you're dealing with is probably the smartest generation in terms of understanding marketing, pretty cynical. And I think for me, the number one critical thing is just to be real and authentic. And if you are, then I think you will do well. And
not the old line, if you can fake that, you've got it made.
No, I mean, I think you're seeing too many examples around today of people who are jumping on cynical marketing bandwagons and actually getting caught out. So I think
that's the kind of greenwashing you were alluding
exactly,
to.
yeah.
Right. Other thoughts?
We all want the best for our children. We all want the best for the next generation.
Yeah.
And I think it's a natural human urge to actually want that. And the internet is something which young people are, in a sense, able to grasp much more easily than people who are getting a bit older. Yeah. The new is something which young people grab more easily and assimilate more easily.
I just hope that I'm sure they will, but they get, the world has been at a place, someone said we've become very good at being individuals. And, what Sir Tim Berners-Lee did was, he was trying to say if you put an idea out there, somebody might help and make it better. And I just hope that we get better at being we, because if we don't, we ain't going to be here.
Yeah, just to build on that, there's a wonderful African quote, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think, it really is kind of an anthem to where we're living today.
And it's funny, the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that the tech world and the Digerati celebrate, I guess, so often has elements of the alone, of being, one or two guys in the garage coming up with something that will change the world. And I almost think of it like the previous session, thinking about gaming. It was you and the dragon and how well you can do against it. But now a sense of wanting still that spirit that you can change things and you can have some idea that may well fail, but that somehow, as you say, pulling a lot of people in at an early stage and being able to share it as well as keep it pure with your own vision. That's the kind of trade-off we're looking for. Michael, any thoughts?
Well, I think we don't have to share it to them. I think they already believe that anything's possible, and that's we just encourage that.
Yeah. Wow. So one of our missions is to talk to our kids, and if you don't have kids, find someone else's kids and talk to them and see what you can find out. So we are actually at time. Our collaborative creativity will have to continue beyond these walls. Please join me in thanking our panelists for putting so much onto the table. Thank you, guys.